What's up guys, my name is Brandon. I am an MIT CS and AI student, and in this video I'll be teaching you everything you need to know on how to build AI systems, even if you have no technical experience in the past. So if you think about an AI application, we have a front end and a back end. The front end is the UI that you see, so whenever you scroll on the app or you interface with a website, the stuff that you see on your screen is considered the front end. It's what makes the site look beautiful, and it's what allows the user to have a nice interface to interact the app with. And on the back end is where you hold the logic, the database, the endpoints that the front end will call to actually have some sort of state and logic that can actually provide value to the user. And so in this video, I'll be teaching you everything you need to know about building the backend side of things, how to build an AI-powered backend system. And there's a lot of no-code tools out there. In this video, I'll be focusing on Make.com. It's a very powerful no-code automation platform. I'll teach you everything, so what it is, how to set it up, how to connect OpenAI to it. And by the end of this video, you'll create your very first AI automation, and it'll be very powerful and it'll be deployed to the web. So whenever you need it, it'll be there for you to access. And so if you have any questions, feel free to leave them into the Skool community I have linked in the description. There I have all my resources and it's completely free. I just want to provide value. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you guys how to use Make.com. Make.com is a no-code automation platform that allows you to string different tools and softwares together to create really helpful automations and workflows. So if we look at the Make.com website, you can see the different use cases that exist, right? So you can do marketing, you can add new leads to CRM and then start a nurture campaign. You can do sales, so you can have the automations draft a proposal and send them to your clients. You can do operations, customer experience. So here we're onboarding a new customer and then adding them to a mailing list. Workplace productivity. So here we're watching for new board items and then adding it to a Notion database. The list goes on, and the possibilities for things you can automate in the workplace are endless. And this is a very cool tool because it doesn't assume you have any previous technical knowledge. It's very beginner friendly and it's no code. So all we have to do is understand the basic building blocks in Make, which are just nodes, and we drag them together in a visual platform to create an automation that will greatly improve productivity. So to get started, we will go to the Get Started Free tab. And then here, to sign in, to create an account, they'll ask you for which role you are. So depending on what role you are in your company, or if you're a entrepreneur, you can click founder. For me, I'll pick founder executive. And then what do you want to automate? I want to automate a lot of things, but for now, let's just pick project management. And then I have no experience of automation. What's the size of my organization? Only me. How did you hear about Make? Well, I'm telling you guys about Make right now, so let's just say a friend. Are you interested in hiring a certified Make expert to help implement your automations? No thanks, because we ourselves are going to learn how to do it. Get started. Cool. So this is what you'll see once you complete the onboarding steps. I don't want to bombard you with too much of how Make.com works. I find that it's easier to learn a software platform by starting with the most important details and building on top of it. So here, you don't need to worry about too much what's going on. The main tab you'll be focused on is the Scenarios tab. The Scenarios tab is where you make all your automations. And the second tab you need to be aware of is Connections. Connections shows all the apps that you have connected via Make. So you might want to connect to OpenAI, Claude, or Notion, or Gmail, etc. For now, let's just start with scenarios, and in the next module, I'll be teaching you guys how to create your very first scenario. See you there. So scenarios in Make.com are workflows that you build to automate tasks. They're the bread and butter of Make.com. But before we actually hop in and create our very first scenario, I'd like to explain some concepts of Make.com that will make this a lot easier. So the most basic building block in Make.com is called the node. Think tokens are to LLMs, nodes are to Make.com. And with these nodes, you actually just string them together to orchestrate bigger systems. So it's very important to understand what a node is before we build anything. A node is an object that allows you to perform a task. They take an input and they output something else. An example is the ChatGPT node I demoed in the LLM lecture, where they take in the user prompt and the output is the ChatGPT response. There's a whole bunch of nodes that Make.com supports. In addition to LLM nodes, you can connect to your most frequently used apps like Slack, your Gmail, Notion, your CRM, Airtable, etc. They have one of the largest collections of apps you can connect to, and if they don't natively support that app, you can also connect to it directly via API. So that is what a node is, but there's actually one exception, and that's the trigger node. The trigger node is different from a normal node in that it doesn't really take in any input, rather it takes in an external event. And a trigger node is always placed at the very beginning of an automation, not anywhere in between or at the end. It's always at the beginning, and it's always what starts a Make.com automation. So how a trigger node works is that it takes in an external event and it outputs something. So examples of trigger events are when time has elapsed. So if you set your automation to trigger every 15 minutes, that is considered an external event trigger. So after every 15 minutes, the automation will trigger. This is very helpful, for example, if you want to build an inbox assistant where every 15 minutes you have this AI automation go through your emails, your new emails, and sort them and put them in the correct category. And for the ones that you don't need to read, send them directly to the trash. The second type of external event is a new update within an app. An example I like to give is, let's say you have a Google Drive folder and you want to set up an automation where every time you input a new file into this Google Drive folder, it triggers the automation. So this is an example of a new update within an app trigger. And a third type of trigger is manual trigger. Manual trigger just basically means you can just click a button in Make.com and it'll run the automation manually. And this is very helpful when you're testing your automations and you haven't deployed them yet. So now that we understand how nodes work and how trigger nodes work, how do we actually orchestrate these systems? So here I have a diagram, a system diagram of a Make.com automation where we're trying to monitor incoming emails, then we're trying to send them to ChatGPT to process them, and then at the end, we're trying to use the response of ChatGPT to reply to this email. So like all automations, they start with a trigger node. So in this case, we have a Gmail node, and this Gmail node, what it'll do is look for incoming new emails. That will be its trigger event. Once it starts, it'll send it to ChatGPT as the user prompt, and the user prompt will be the contents of the Gmail, and ChatGPT will process that and then output a response to that email. And then in your reply email node, you will then output the response of ChatGPT. So how exactly should we put this together? Well, we already have these three nodes. All we need to do in Make.com is string them together. The way Make.com works is that you want to orchestrate from left to right, meaning your trigger node is always at the very left, and things that happen subsequently are placed to the very right of it. So first, I want to do a Gmail node, then I want to do ChatGPT node, and then finally, I want to reply to the email with a reply email node. And what's really cool about Make.com is that every time a node is invoked, meaning there's some input and then some output, the output is actually saved into some memory. And this is global memory, meaning it can be used by any subsequent node. Let me show you what I mean. So once we invoke the Gmail node at the very beginning, like the trigger node, we will get some data. So one data we'll get is the email contents. So the email title, the email body. The second data we'll get from this Gmail node is the email ID. And now that we have this information, we can pass that on to the ChatGPT node. And because the Gmail node came before the ChatGPT node, it has access to these two contents within the memory, namely the email contents and the email ID. We do not want to pass the email ID into a ChatGPT node because that's useless. It's just a string of numbers. But rather, you want to pass the email contents, which is the body of the email. So we will then pass the email contents into the ChatGPT node for ChatGPT to craft a response. Afterwards, once ChatGPT is done, it will output a email response, which is from ChatGPT. And now that it has that output, it will be stored into global memory. And now, once we arrive to the reply email node, it has access to all three contents within the memory, which is email content, email ID, and email response from ChatGPT. Which of these three will the reply email node need? Well, they will need the email ID as well as the email response. They will need the email ID because they need to know which email thread to reply to, and they will need the email response from ChatGPT to know what to actually write in the email response. So that is one complete flow of a Make.com automation, and I hope it wasn't too confusing. If you have any questions, please put it into the community thread. I'll try my best to help you, and there will also be a lot of other cool automators that will try their best to help you. And in the next module, I'll be teaching you how to actually implement this within Make.com. I'll see you there. Thank you. So in the previous video, I talked about a AI system which monitors your inbox. Then for every new email that comes in, they read the contents of that email, sends it to ChatGPT. ChatGPT will then craft a response to that email, and then the AI system will use that response and reply to the same email thread. Now, let's actually try to implement that into Make.com. But before we can actually implement this in Make.com, we need to connect Make.com to the software platforms that we need. So in this case, it's OpenAI and our Gmail. Let's talk about OpenAI. So for Make.com to connect to OpenAI, OpenAI will give us a specific key, and that's a personal key specific to us, and no one else in the world has it. And using this key, we input it into Make so that Make can then make a connection to OpenAI. This key is called a personal API key, and you can get it by navigating to this website, which is platform.openai.com/settings/organization/API keys. That link will be in the description below. And if you were to navigate to this site, you will have to create an account or log in to your OpenAI account. And then once you get in, here you will see all the API keys you have. You will click on create new secret key, and then you can just name this to whatever you want. I'll just name this to make.com tutorial, select project, default project, and then give it all the permissions. Restricted permissions means you want the API key to have specific permissions for each model, but we don't need that at the moment. And then read only means you can't fine tune the models, which is not needed at the moment. So let's just do all permissions. Create secret key. And now that you have your secret key, copy it and then click done. Go back to make.com, click on create a new scenario. And now to connect to OpenAI, let's click on the OpenAI node. Click on create a completion. That is the most frequent method you'll use for OpenAI, which is creating a chat completion. That means given some text, it will craft a response back, which is how we normally use ChatGPT. So let's click on it. Click on create a connection. And then in the API key field, paste in the API key that we got from our playground, which is here. So previously I made an API key, and you can leave the organization ID blank, click save. And you can see now I can choose whichever model I want to create a chat completion. That concludes the part where I am connecting to OpenAI via Make. In the next module, I'll teach you how to connect your Gmail account. And once we have those two components done, we can then orchestrate the whole system to build out the AI-powered email system. One more thing I want to talk about is the billing section. So here we already have our API keys in our OpenAI account. It is how we authenticate ourselves with OpenAI, saying that we are us and not someone else. And this is also the key that OpenAI uses to track how much you spend and so that they can bill you. If we go here to the billing section, you can see here I already loaded up my account with $100. You can load it up with however much you want, but please make sure that you do load up your account with some amount of money, because if you don't, then whenever you call the OpenAI API, it will not go through and it will error. So here, if you're interested in learning more about the pricing structure, you can go to the pricing tab. And OpenAI charges you differently based on which model you use. The more advanced the model, the more they charge you. And remember in the session where I talked about tokens, they charge you based on your input tokens and your cash input tokens as well as your output tokens. So in this case, GPT-4o, which is the model that most of us are going to be using, charges us $250 for 1 million tokens. If we do the math out, that's around 750,000 words into the input, and that's just going to cost us $250. So it won't cost you like a whole truck just to call this OpenAI API. It doesn't cost that much, probably like just a few cents per major invocation. So yeah, it's pretty reasonable pricing structure. So cool. So make sure to top up your account. And one more thing I want to bring up is you can have auto recharge on. Auto recharge means whenever your account balance goes down to a certain amount, it automatically tops up. So you can turn on auto recharge here. If I click on modify, I can see that I have it set to when credit balance goes down below 10, I set the credit balance back up to 100, so it automatically bills my credit card. And this is prevent any like outages that I have with my AI systems. Hope this was helpful. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Now that we are done connecting OpenAI to Make, now let's connect our Gmail to Make. To do that, we will create a new node by clicking on Add Another Module right next to the OpenAI node. And then here in the dropdown, search up Gmail, click on Gmail, and then let's scroll down to Send an Email. Whichever one you click doesn't matter, but for the purposes of this video and the system that we're about to build, let's click on Send an Email. And then to actually connect, we click on Create a Connection. And here, all you need to do is click Sign in with Google. Wait a little bit, and then here, choose the Google account you will want to monitor your emails from. So here, I'll choose my Google account, click Allow. And now we are connected. So now we have Gmail and OpenAI connected. In the next video, I'll teach you how to string all these nodes together to create the AI-powered email system and build your first AI automation. I'll see you there. In this video, I'll be showing you guys how to share blueprints and import blueprints. So let's say we created a make.com system and you want to share it. To do that, we would go to the three dots down here and then click on Export Blueprint. That will create a JSON file of this make.com system, and it will appear in your downloads folder. So here you can see my AI email responder blueprint.json. And now let's say we downloaded a make.com system. Now we want to import it. To do that, we go into create a new scenario, and then we go down to three dots here. We click on import blueprint, choose file, and then choose the JSON file we want to import. All these make.com systems, by the way, are downloaded as JSON files. Click on save, and voila, you have your make.com system. In all the make.com tutorials that I'll do, I will be attaching the make.com blueprints in the descriptions so that you can just download and then import it into your make.com. I hope this was helpful. I'll see you in the next video. Before we actually build a system, it will be very beneficial to understand a high-level overview of how this looks like in Make.com and actually see in action. So what you see here is the complete Make.com AI email responder system, and it has all the components that we've been talking about. From left to right, it first receives a new email in the inbox, then it crafts an email reply using ChatGPT, and then finally, using that reply, it sends an email back to that email thread. The context in which I want to use this email responder is one in which we're trying to manage an inbox that will take in customer queries for a headphone company called Sonic Wave Audio. This inbox will take in thousands and thousands of email inquiries a day. And what this email responder does is that it sorts through all of them, determines the sentiment of that email, and based on that sentiment, it does a action accordingly. And so to actually see this in action, I created a example customer query that you can see here. My query was, the sound quality is amazing, but the headphones don't really fit on me. So you can see this is sort of a neutral tone. There's something good about this, but there's also something bad. Now let's see how the AI responds to it. To invoke this AI, I'm just gonna go on the bottom left here. Let me move my face out the way. So go on the bottom left here and click on run once, and you can actually see the nodes moving. So to see what actually got passed through, you can click on the one bubble here. The email contents got passed through successfully. You can see my email got read in, and then that will then be passed into ChatGPT. And here it drafted a email reply in HTML format. You'll understand what is going on here and why I specify HTML format in the next video, but just understand that we can pass an HTML format into the Gmail nodes and it can render it in the format that would be displayed as if it was displayed in a web browser. So finally, it has a reply and now I'll send it to the customer, as you can see here. Cool. And now if we go back to our inbox and go to sent, you can see here that we successfully drafted a reply using AI. That's, hi, Brandon. Thanks for your feedback. We're glad you love the sound quality, but if you're having fit issues, our customer service team can help you find a better option. Feel free to reach out to this email and then best Sonic Wave Audio team. That is a pretty good customer reply. And when we're able to deploy this at scale, this will save a bunch of time for people who have to manually go through these emails. In the next video, we'll actually be building this system from scratch. I'll see you there. Now let's actually build the AI email responder in Make.conf from start to finish. Before we actually build the scenario, we need to make sure that the connections are set correctly. Go onto your sidebar on the left-hand side and then click on connections. Here, you should see your two connections that we made earlier. One is the OpenAI connection that allows you to connect to ChatGPT and their other LLMs. And the second is the Google connection that allows you to connect to the Gmail node. Please make sure you have these two connections set up or else you will not be able to build the scenario. Once you have verified that you have these two connections, you can hop into the scenarios tab and then go to create a new scenario in the upper right-hand corner and begin building a scenario. So when we start building a scenario, we need to think about what our trigger is. A trigger is a node that is triggered by an external event. So some passage of time or some sort of update on a app. In this case, we want to monitor for incoming emails. And whenever there's a new incoming email, that acts as an external trigger to start this automation. So we need a trigger node, and our trigger node will be from Gmail. We will search up Gmail in this dropdown, click on Gmail, and then the trigger here, you can see that it's clearly labeled triggers, is watch emails. Here, we can configure the settings of this trigger node. First, we need to choose the folder in which we want to read the emails from. Here, we want to read all emails, so I will be choosing all mail. The filter type will just be a simple filter. In the future, if you want more advanced filters where you don't want every single email to be processed, you can go to Gmail filter. But for the purposes of this system, we just need a simple email filter. The criteria is all emails. Mark email messages as read when fetched. Yes. And then for maximum number of results, set it equal to 1, because if we set it equal to something more than 1, it will be passing us more than one email. And when we pass this data onto ChatGPT, ChatGPT will be confused. So it's good to only process one entity at a time. So in this case, we're processing one email at a time. Click Save. And now we have the option of choosing where to start. For this system, we want to choose from now on, but you can also specify the three other options if you want other use cases. So now that we have the Gmail node set up, we want to pass this data onto the ChatGPT node. To add the ChatGPT node, you will click on Add Another Module that is slightly to the right of this existing module. Click on it, and then in the dropdown, search ChatGPT and click on OpenAI. And the method that you want to invoke is create a completion. And all of these nodes should be connected automatically because we've already connected to these apps as shown in the Connections tab earlier. So the method that we have here is create a chat completion. The model that we want to use for the system is ChatGPT 4o. You can experiment with other LMs if you want to. And you can see here max completion tokens is 2048. If you remember from a previous lecture, a token is around 3/4 of an English word. So by setting the max completion tokens, you're setting the hard limit for the max output the LM can give you. So when it's 2048 tokens, it is actually around 3/4 of that many words. So that's around 1,500 words. Now you can see here we can give the LM a bunch of messages. There are 3 types of messages, as you can see: user, assistant, and system. Just so you can have an idea of what these messages are, I'll just go into chat.com and give you guys an example. So here I'm interfacing with ChatGPT through the web UI, and I'll ask it a question: how do I build AI systems? The message that I just gave ChatGPT is a user message. It's any message that comes from me as a user. And any message that is displayed by ChatGPT is considered an assistant message. So anything here that's an output from the LLM is an assistant message. So that covers the first 2 types of messages, but what is a system message, right? A system message is a message inherent to the LLM, and you can't tweak it once you set it. And usually you use this to specify the role and the task of the LLM. So here, when we want to create an email responder, we want to specify that this LM is in charge of responding to emails. And you also want to give it context for what type of company they're working for. Here, in this case, I want to be building a inbox responder for a company that takes in customer queries. And the company specializes in making headphones. And this company is called Sonic Wave Audio. And so in a role, we want to tell the LM that they are an expert at responding to customer inquiries and that they work for Sonic Wave Audio. I actually have this text pasted somewhere else, and I'll copy and paste it from there so you don't watch me type away. I have the system message here. I'll just copy and paste it here. Click on system message and then the and let's actually walk through the prompt I gave it because I think it's a good practice to learn about the different prompts that would best maximize the output of the LLM. So in this case, the role that we're giving it is you are ChatGPT, an AI customer service assistant for Sonic Wave Audio, a company that sells high-quality headphones. Your job is to generate short, professional, and friendly email replies, maximum 3 sentences based on customer reviews. And then I'll give it the response guidelines. For positive reviews, thank the customer, express appreciation, and suggest another product you might like. For neutral reviews, acknowledge the positive remarks, and if they mention any issues, direct them to customer service. And for negative reviews, apologize for the experience and recommend that they contact customer service for resolution. And then afterwards, I specify what should be outputted. So I say, make sure that the email is properly formatted and output is in HTML tags. Only output the HTML, no backticks or HTML at the very beginning. As you can see from this prompt, I'm actually employing a lot of the techniques that I mentioned in the prompt engineering module. I'm specifying the role of the LLM. I'm giving them the exact output format I want their output to be. And I'm also telling them the tone they should be outputting their response in. So I'm saying short, professional, and friendly. Now that we have that, we want to add a follow-up message. And this follow-up message will be a user message. So it's a message that we would type in chat.com. And in this follow-up message, I want to give an example of a typical user query. I'll click user, and then for text content, the user query is, I love the sound quality, but the ear cushions wear out quickly. So you can see this is sort of a neutral review. And then I'll add another message, and this is a type of message that I want the assistant to output. I want the assistant to output something like, thanks for your feedback. We're glad you love the sound quality. For replacement ear cushions, our customer service team will be happy to assist. Feel free to reach out to support@sonicwaveaudio.com. So what I'm doing here is I'm giving the LM a conversation history, and this conversation history serves as really good context for how the LM should process subsequent input. So here we have an example user query. It says, I love the sound quality, blah, 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 and then what we want the assistant to reply with. And now we actually want to add in the message that was given from the email. So the text content will be the contents of the email. And what's really nice about make.com is that once you click on a text field, it actually shows all the variables you have access to. So if you remember the make.com system diagram, whenever a node is invoked, all the output from that node is stored in global memory, and all those variables can be accessed in this dropdown that you see here. Here we have access to a lot of variables, but what we're interested in is the text content. So we would then drag the text content into this field and then click on save. Just to recap what just happened, we are configuring the ChatGPT node to come up with a reply to a customer email. And the way we're doing it is first we're giving it a system message for what its role is and what its task is. Afterwards, we're giving it a conversation history for what should occur between a customer and a customer service representative. Afterwards, we're giving them the actual customer query and telling them to respond accordingly. So that is what is happening here. And this whole blueprint will be linked down in the description below. So you can just import it into your make.com scenario and digest it slowly if you would like. Afterwards, once we have the ChatGPT module configured and we have the response, we would then want to send that response in a new email back to the customer. To do that, we would click on Add Another Module, search Gmail, and then click on Send an Email. Here, and just a slight trick, if you click on this button here next to the question mark, you can actually expand the fields so that it's easier to configure the settings. And then here we want to choose who we want to send the email to. We want to send an email back to the email address that sent us the email. The subject will just be in brackets reply, and then the subject. And then for the content, we want the result of the ChatGPT LLM, which we can drag onto here. Cool. And now we can click save. And this is our complete flow. And one other trick that you can do in make.com is rename modules so it's better readability. Whenever you are looking at a new make.com scenario, it's really nice if all the nodes are named according to what they do. So here, what we're doing is watching for new emails. And then here, we are crafting a reply. And here, we are sending or replying back to customer. So now that we have this whole flow, we should click on save. And then one other really nice thing about make.com is that you can auto align, and that basically aligns all your nodes so that it's framed in a presentable manner. There are a bunch of different triggers. One is at regular intervals, which means after a amount of time has elapsed, it will trigger. You can just invoke it once. You can invoke it every day. Choose days of the week you want to invoke it, specified dates, or on demand. For the purposes of testing this automation, I'll just choose on demand. What on demand does is that once you save it and then you activate the scenario in the bottom left, you can click on run once and it'll actually run it on demand. So it won't run automatically, but just for testing purposes, I will be changing this trigger to on demand. But in the future, when you actually want to deploy the system, you want to have it on some frequency. So like either every day or for at regular intervals, it can be like every hour or every 15 minutes. But for the purposes of testing this, I'll just do on demand. So here you can see in my inbox, I just got a new customer review. It says, hey, I love your headphones. The sound quality and battery life are amazing. Best Brandon. To actually see this AI system in action, let's go back to our make.com scenario. And because we have it on demand, we can just click on run once and it will actually run the system for us instead of having to wait a set amount of time for this system to trigger. So you can see here that it read in the email, crafted a reply, and then replied back to the customer. And if you click on the one bubble here, you can actually see the contents getting read in. So this is the customer email. This is the response. And here we are setting the content to be the response of ChatGPT. And the reason why, so if we go into the ChatGPT node, you can see that we're actually outputting HTML. So you might be wondering, why are we outputting in HTML rather than just text format? It's because in text format, white space isn't deterministic, meaning like 5 spaces won't look the same in 2 different settings. Whereas if you have HTML, no matter which environment you paste it in, the format of it is deterministic. So because we want to put this into an email reply, and we're not sure how the environment will parse white space, by outputting it exactly in HTML, we are deterministically setting the format of the reply. So that's why we're doing HTML. And you can see here in the prompt, we're doing make sure the email is properly formatted and output it in HTML tags, only output the HTML, no backtick or HTML at the very beginning. We are honing in on the prompt engineering and making sure that the output is only HTML. It sent the reply, so we go back to our inbox and then go to sent and then click on the reply and see the reply. It says, hi, Brandon. Thank you for your kind words. So it recognizes that this is a positive review. We're thrilled that you're enjoying the sound quality and battery life. You might also love our wireless earbuds for a more affordable option. Let us know if you like the recommendation. Best Sonic Wave Audio 3. So this reply is really good. Not only is it acknowledging the positive review, but it's also directing the customer to another product that they might want, thereby increasing the sales and conversions. And this is all on autopilot. There's no human in the loop here. All we have is an AI system constantly managing the inbox. This concludes the module on creating your first automation. I hope you enjoyed it. In the subsequent chapters, we'll actually be diving more into this and creating more complex automations so that you can be an expert at creating AI systems. I'll see you there. Thank you.